Building a personal brand can be very rewarding until you are fired for intellectual property theft. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Nello. I love to talk about tech, career, data, and AI. So if you're interested in any of that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. You're going to love it here. In today's episode, I'm going to talk from a very personal experience about being fired for creating content online or having a business outside of your 9 to 5. I've noticed that a lot of people are interested in creating content, but as you do that, there's some things that you should put into consideration, especially if you want to create content around your career. And I'm going to dive into that so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is intellectual property. So I have the definition of intellectual property on my phone here. I'm just going to read it out to you guys. So intellectual property refers to the creations of the mind that are legally protected from unauthorized use by others. These creations can include inventions, literary and artistic work, brand names, logos, slogans, design, symbols, and trade secrets. Trade secrets being a very important one in this conversation. Again, if you don't know what intellectual property is, please do a little bit of research. But I want to tell you guys why understanding intellectual property is very important, especially if you are going to go online and talk about what you do for work online. Now, it's not new that a lot of people have lost their jobs for creating content online, but I want to dive into some of the reasons why, so that if you do want to create content online, you know how to do it in a way that doesn't hurt your job. So intellectual property, as you can see, can be your employer's trade secret. In my case, I was fired. The reason that I was fired from work was actually because they said that it was conflict of interest. My company, my personal company, which you guys know, I do training and consulting for data solutions outside of my 9 to 5, is conflict of interest, and that I was also violating the company's policy. Now, HR let me know that when I joined the company, I did not disclose that I had a business outside. I did tell this to my manager after I have joined the company, but they said that I should have disclosed it before I was hired. So that's also something that you should note. The first thing I would recommend, go through your employment contract. If you want to talk about a business, let's say you're working in tech, and in my case, I was working in an analytics team and I was training people outside of work to learn analytics. It can look like conflict of interest for your company. So I would highly recommend that you read your company's employment contract and ensure that there are no loopholes that they can use to fire you. There are cases and scenarios where it has absolutely nothing to do with your performance. I've seen situations where the content creator was actually underperforming, and that was the reason why they fired that person. But in my case, they put me on a PIP and I beat that PIP because it had nothing to do with my performance. It really was just the fact that I had stepped on some toes, which is another story for another day. And they wanted to push me out, and they found loopholes in my employment contract and they used it against me. So I want to let you know, if you are interested in creating content about what you do for work, be very careful, because that can also make you lose your job. And that's also one of the reasons I took a year-long sabbatical from corporate America and I focused on my business, because I remember I told you guys, if you've been following the YouTube channel, that there was a very specific reason why I took my sabbatical from corporate, right? That's one of the big reasons. I just felt so betrayed that corporate did me like that. And I was like, you know what? Let me take a break. I am now back working in 9 to 5. Woo! And I didn't think I was going to go back this soon. I thought I was going to do my business for a little more longer, but I'm going to share the reason why I ran back to my 9 to 5 in another video. But this video is really for intellectual property. So let's talk more about it. So the first thing I would say, make sure you read your employment contract. Make sure that you are not breaking any laws. Talk to the appropriate person. Make sure you have a really good relationship and rapport with the person that you're reporting to, so that they can cover your ass, so that they can vouch for you. The next thing is social media branding. Okay, so on intellectual property and just like violating company policy, there's one more thing I want to say. Now, it does depend on your company size. I know you've seen a lot of the Meta, Google, Amazon, Netflix engineers online talking about what they do for work, and it doesn't seem like a problem. It will never be a problem because Meta, Google, the FANG companies or like the really big companies don't see you who is just one employee who is starting something. They don't see you as a threat, right? But if you work for a startup or a small company, which in my case, my company was very small, it's kind of like a startup, and I started my own startup. So you can become a threat really, really quickly. So just keep that in mind. The second thing after intellectual property that you need to know is that your brand is not your company's brand. Repeat after me. Your brand is not your company's brand. I see a lot of people go on social media and their brand is centered around their company. Their brand is centered around Google. It's centered around Netflix. It's centered around Amazon. Amazing, because it does help you get a lot of recognition. People want to know how you go into these companies, but you also have to understand that you cannot make your entire identity about that company, because it can come back and bite you in the ass in the worst ways. I know a lot of people that have built their entire brand around being X at Microsoft and being X at Google and being X at Netflix, and when the company lays them off, they start to have an identity crisis. So I would say that if you want to create a personal brand, create something that you can own. Do not create a brand for your company. Okay, you're doing free marketing for your company. Do you work with the marketing team of your company? Are you helping them sell their products? If you're not, you should be creating something for yourself. That's another thing that I would say. If you want to create about corporate, make sure that you are creating something that you can benefit from and not something for your company. Another addition when it comes to intellectual property, or just like conflict when it comes to like working with like these big giants. The reason why a lot of people who work with the big giants succeed is that, think about it, Google doesn't see you as a threat. You're an employee. You can never compete with those big companies, right? So if you work in a big company, they even love that you go online to talk about their stuff because you're doing free marketing for them. You're letting people know how amazing it is to work at that company, and it encourages more people to want to work at that company. So you're helping them. It's great stuff for them. But when you work in a smaller company, what happens is that the company can feel threatened, your boss can feel threatened. There's just so many nuances, there's so many things that can come out of you posting consistently, especially about work. You can become a threat. There are so many things. So I would be super mindful of the way that you kind of present yourself online, especially if you have a 9 to 5. So I have a list of things that I want to say that I've written down here for you guys. Know your rights. Do a ton of research. Once you start to gain traction online, if you can hire an attorney, there are creator attorneys. If you can hire an attorney, I highly recommend having lawyer friends and attorney friends that can consistently advise you on like all the decisions that you make, so you don't make a bad decision, because this space is still new and there's a lot of things that are not defined yet and you can just make mistakes. Personally, one of the mistakes that I made, and I'll use myself as an example, is I did a UGC deal that I didn't really know what that video was going to be used for, and they ended up altering the video. When I signed the contract, I didn't really read through the fine print of it, and I signed away my rights. I gave them usage rights, and let me tell you, they took that video and they made a complete mess out of that video. So if you see any video circulating of me that is AI generated, I really can't even push back, although I'm working with an attorney to try to get it taken down. But I really can't go back and push back because I didn't have the knowledge on what like the media space is. Now I do. So these are things that I think that just requires a lot of research, and I would highly recommend that you work with an attorney. There's so many nuances. There's copywriting laws that you need to know in this space. There are so many. There's a lot of education that has to happen if you do want to come into the content creation space. Do your research, do your due diligence. I promise you it is very, very necessary. You don't want to make the same mistakes that I made. Ask questions, work with a lot of mentors. Find people who are already succeeding and who kind of have navigated the space and know what they're doing, and kind of attach yourself to them. It will save you a lot of time. My personal brand, was definitely a huge revenue source for me. I don't like to talk about money online. I don't know if you guys know, because every time I talk about money online, scammers, they start emailing me and calling my phone. So that's also another thing you need to be mindful of. All these people that come online and say, oh, I make $1 million. You're putting a target on your back. You are putting a target on your back every time. I will talk about something as little as $3,000. I promise you, people are already trying to get into my email. $3,000. So I'm very careful the way that I talk about things online. Do not forget, online is literally public. I don't know if you guys have forgotten this. Everybody can access this space. So you have to be careful. I don't like to talk about money online for a very good and very intentional reason. My personal brand has been very, very crucial in helping me stay afloat during the time that I stayed off corporate America and I was working on my business. I cannot say anything bad about building a personal brand outside of the fact that it's a lot of work. It comes with a lot of resilience. It's not as easy as it looks. A lot of the people you see that do it effortlessly, they truly enjoy it. It requires a lot of discipline and hard work. So if you want to do it, I highly recommend that you do it. Just be prepared to put in the work. That's it in this video. I know that I've been gone for a minute, but guys, I am back in corporate. I'm trying to readjust. There's so many things that I'm working on. I will be sharing. I want to be compliant. I want to do things right this time. I feel like during the first 3-4 years of me trying to do my business and really building my personal brand online, there was a lot of learning that was happening because, again, I was new to it. I kind of fell into it, which I've shared with you guys. But I feel like I want to now start operating from a place of knowledge more than from a place of experimentation. So I'm excited about that. I hope you guys are staying on track. We are going to pick up with talking about tech, data, and AI. As always, I have so many cool stuff coming. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. But I really wanted to make this video because I'm noticing that a lot of creators are losing their jobs, especially the ones that are working at startups. Okay, so you really have to be mindful about how you show up online, especially have a 9-to-5. Read that contract. Read their contract. There are contracts that even explicitly state that everything you do while you are employed to the company is the company's properties. All the work you're doing that is literally their intellectual property. The contracts can be very, very hard. So please read it and make sure you're not breaking anything so you don't lose your job. That's it in this video, guys. As always, I'm glad that we are back. Let's keep the momentum going. No more falling off. Let's finish Q2 stronger. And as always, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.